Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's Sunday, the 1st of February, 2026. And I gotta kick it off with a sneeze. Right after show, as soon as we begin, there it goes. Now today we've got a really cool video set up for you because you're gonna be thinking maybe you're seeing double. You kinda are. Once I can get all the sneezes out of me, we'll fix that in post. Our friends over at MINISFORUM refreshed the AI X1 Pro, one of the nicest, highest end, most elegant mini PCs I've ever seen. It just came out last year. Am I done sneezing? I don't know. Wow. That couldn't have happened like 2 minutes earlier. I apologize for that. I think I might be allergic to myself. So we have already reviewed something that looks on the outside very similar. In fact, that sneeze is still there. In fact, it is still very similar today from my understanding, only it's got a newer, recently released refresh of the Xi370 processor from AMD with the 470. Now AMD only announced that at CES. So the fact that so many products that get announced at CES often take a long time to come out. Even Intel's new Panther Lake, or whatever they call their new third generation of the mobile processor, they said, hey, we're releasing it today on CES, but it takes a while for it to then travel to the manufacturers and get the products built. So nothing's available, to the best of my knowledge, even now, with that newly announced processor that was made available at CES. It's available to the manufacturers. So we'll be seeing those here soon, and I think that's pretty much it for the rest of the year. We're going to have a pretty slow year in processors this year, which is probably good timing because with the RAM and NVMe shortage, people may not be building, especially super high-end machines anyway. But this is a great way to kind of circumvent those higher prices by going with the mobile chips. These are mobile chips on desktop, MODT, mobile on desktop. And they can save you in electricity cost, the size of the area it takes on your desk, right? The footprint of it is much smaller. They're quieter. More often than not, these do often have soldered in RAM. So that's already built into the price. And trust me, they're buying RAM a lot cheaper than you and I can. So we're going to compare the two side by side. And as I mentioned, from the outside, they're going to look nearly identical. It's how they run. And then depending on how you use it, that may make a big difference to you. Otherwise, even if it doesn't make much difference to you today, it could make a difference to you where the one that runs better is simply going to have a longer useful life. How many years do you expect to get out of it? Because the more powerful unit should get more years of usefulness out of it than a less powerful unit. Now, there's not a huge difference in power between them, but sometimes that little bit of difference can make all the world of difference depending on how you use it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome in, everybody. I hope you're all having a great Sunday. And hello to our friends joining us in the chat, especially our friend Buster from Edinburgh, Scotland, who sends us an Amazon gift card just prior to the show starting. Trying to clear out whatever I'm allergic to is really affecting me today for some reason. And I was fine right before I hit the go live button. So Murphy's Law is still alive and well in 2026, in case you were wondering. Hasn't gone away yet. The show must go on. Thank you to Buster for the Amazon gift card as always. Buster says the temperature in Edinburgh, Scotland right now, and it's the evening there, 39 degrees Fahrenheit or 3.8 degrees Celsius. Yeah, they're feeling winter. Phoenix, on the other hand, had the third warmest January ever recorded on in the history of since they started recording temperatures in daily, monthly temperatures. So the third warmest January. We really haven't had much of a winter here yet, but here's hoping we'll still have some cold weather coming. In the meantime, it's 80 degrees, 79 degrees Fahrenheit. It's nice to be able to open the windows and let some fresh air in. Yeah. So I'm not complaining too much, but I do like it when it gets a little bit chilly. Maybe not below 40 chilly, but in the 50s and 60s, yeah. Where's that weather? Let's see. Lana Dro says hello in the chat. Josh Kinder joins us along with Eddie Casanova and John Williams. Sean Skinner, and I see Scott and Andy W6AD joining us saying hello. Marlena, our channel administrator, hanging out here in the chat with you guys. I also want to say hello to Lou Greenia out there in Vermont joining us saying hello. Ben Laird from Scotland also joining us saying hello. And Jonathan Fells, Mark Baggett, Richard DeFries, David Graham, all joining saying hello, along with Patrick Manny, Phil Stodd, Mark Gaines, John Lewis joins us from Brazil. W.E. Holmes says hello. He says, did someone say MINISFORUM? Hello from Northern California. Yes, MINISFORUM. Welcome in, W.E. Holmes. John Rogers says hello. And Matt says hello. All right, well, first and foremost, let me just show you something. Last year, we took a look at this amazing beast of a computer. Now, you know I normally prefer Intel for my own personal use, but there is an exception, and that's this guy right here. This is utilizing the AMD Strix. What did they call this thing? It's got a long name. AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470. That's a lot of words. It's no wonder I don't remember it. And what impressed me about it the most was, first of all, it doesn't look like any other mini PC that MINISFORUM makes, or for that matter, anybody else makes. It's longer, it's thinner, and it's more similar to an Apple design, which everybody seemingly finds more attractive than, you know, PCs. We've got a memory card sleeter. Wow, slow down. It's not a sleeter, it's a slot, memory card slot reader, sleeter. And in the back, we've got a ton of I/O. I mean, we got a little bit of everything back here, and it is well suited for, you know, even Oculink with the built-in power supply, which I love since I don't have to deal with an external power supply. So this is your do-everything machine. Do it all well. It doesn't matter what it is. This does it. This does AI-related stuff. What's AI-related stuff? Don't worry about it. You don't have to use it. This does all your processing super fast. This does your Wi-Fi fast. It does your external ports quickly. But what about gaming? It has the best, at the time, the single best internal graphics card built into an AMD processor, or an Intel processor for that matter. But what if that's not good enough, Carey? They got an Oculink port. You can run that into a GPU dock that MINISFORUM also can make, or does make, and you can plug your graphics card into that. Now you've got a machine here that can rival pretty much anybody's full desktop tower, and you'll spend less doing it. So we're going to talk a little bit about the new version of this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this out, and we'll set this aside. I'm going to move this over here. Let's just put it like that. Let's get over to the AI X1 Pro. Now, as you can see, they're both AI X1 Pros. This one has a sticker on the back, and this one says it's an X1 AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470. 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage. The GPU on this, if you want to look up its performance, is the Radeon 890M. That's what's built into the CPU. So to open this, we just pull these tabs, really super easy to open. I don't have to get a razor out and cut it out. And then when we open this up, it's going to look awfully familiar to many of you. I didn't tear the way it was supposed to. Let's try it now. Well, I guess I am going to have to get a razor. I just jinxed myself. There we go. That should have taken that corner off when I peeled the paper back. Okay, so here's the new version. We're going on camera 2. Very familiar, right? Set that there. And then what else is in the box? Well, let's take a look. Got some documentation. We've got our power cord, again with a built-in power supply. We have a short HDMI cable. We have a little stand, so if you want to, whoops, I'm kind of resting on my keyboard. We have a little stand here, so if you wanted to, you can set this computer flat on your desk like this, or with the included stand, you could put it this way, like so. Either way, it'll be happy to run. And then finally in the box, we have VESA mount. So yeah, you can mount this behind your monitor or under a desk, and all the screws and everything you need for that are here. For additional NVMe drives, you've got the thermal pads and heat sinks included, and then also some additional screws, which might be for the NVMe, or I'm not sure. And Mara says we've got email, and that's pretty much it here. Yeah, nothing else in the box. Now, just to clear the desk a little bit, for today's demonstration, we'll be testing this bad boy. So I'm going to go ahead and put all this extra stuff in here because we don't need it today. I already have a power cable I can use, so we'll keep all that together so I don't lose anything. And let me set this aside so I have some room. Also, for some reason, there it is. Isn't that interesting? What if we turn that one on an angle too? They're hard to tell apart. But it's almost like you have two cars made by the same manufacturer that are the same year, but one has a regular engine in it and one has a turbo engine in it. Or one has a 6-cylinder, one has an 8-cylinder. It's not uncommon for there to be different tiers utilizing the same car, like the Dodge Challenger has multiple versions. The Mustang has multiple versions of the same car. They all look alike from the outside, but their prices, wow, they could be very different. So let me show you the specs on this before we go too much further here. We're going to go to the links in our video description below the video, where Mara has placed the links for these units. So bear with me for 1 second and I will share them with you. Now, because the 470 model is so new, it is not yet available at Amazon. So let's go over to MINISFORUM's website where we can learn more about this new 470 model, and I'll share the screen with you. Now, the good news is that means the 370 model will be marked down since the 470 is the latest version. And let's see what the specs are here. Believe it or not, you're at $759.90. And why do I say believe it or not? Well, look what you're going to get for the money. It's an AMD Ryzen 9, or AI 9, Stop that. HX470, that's a 12 count, 24 thread CPU. It has rather 4 M.2 slots that are all Gen 4. If each of those 4 slots had 4 gigs drives in it, you'd hold up to 12 terabytes just inside of this thin little case. Dual USB 4 ports. Those are your, I believe, your 40 gig per second ports. The reason I say I believe is there is a USB 4 version 2 at 80 gigs per second, but it normally would say V2 after that. We'll double check. But that's nothing to sneeze at regardless. You've got your Oculink port. You've got 2.5 gig wired Ethernet and Wi-Fi 7 with Bluetooth 5.4. Both are the latest in wireless technology, not last year's wireless technology. You have a fingerprint reader. It is a Copilot PC, which many home users don't care about. And it does 86 trillion operations per second with the Neural Processing Unit for local AI processing, which again, most home users they can't really wrap their heads around that. And it does look like you can put your own RAM in this. It is not soldered on like I thought it was, because the reason that price is so low is there's no RAM or storage. So if the RAM were soldered in, you wouldn't have that choice. So clearly you can add your own RAM and your own storage. So 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte is exactly what they sent us. And by adding that, how much do you think that adds to the cost? It adds quite a bit of money to the cost. And that's because the price of RAM and storage right now are so expensive. So if you have your own RAM and storage laying around, look how much money you can save. We go from $759 to nearly double the price just with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte. So now I'm curious to open it up and take a look at it. The price differences, they keep flooring me because every time we look at the prices of RAM and storage, they keep going up and up and up. But the price of the thing you want to put it in keep getting better and better value. You have a 30-day free return if you buy from MINISFORUM, lifetime technical support. There's no tariffs charged for the US or Canada, and it's got a 2-year warranty. You can buy an extra year warranty if you want. They accept all the popular payment methods and use all the popular shippers. So how are they promoting this? Again, there's a lot of focus on AI, which you don't have to use. I think a lot of people don't realize how AI is going to be beneficial for everybody in the future, but it isn't today. It is beneficial for developers today. But if you're not a developer, you probably won't see much unless you're using specific applications that that utilize local NPUs. So this isn't something I would dismiss as saying, well, I would never need that. You probably will at some point. I just don't know if it's going to be 6 months or 3 years. I don't know. But as software starts to take advantage of local AI, things should be a lot faster. If you should choose to ignore the AI trend, well, then your computer will still run AI stuff, but it'll have to use the cloud to do it. So you might notice your computer slowing down under certain software that requires it. So that's why I say we're not there yet, but it's coming. A little bit about the graphics card, the Oculink. It is DDR5, in case you were wondering, and it can hold up to 128 gigs of DDR5. It can hold up to 12 terabytes of storage with those 3 NVMe drives if they were all 4 gigs apiece. It can support 4 displays simultaneously at 4K because it would use 1 HDMI port, 1 display port, and it's got 2 USB 4s that with a cable out of USB 4 into DisplayPort or HDMI, that's an additional monitor for each USB 4 port. Wi-Fi, again, Wi-Fi 7, 2.5 gig Ethernet, and Bluetooth 5.4, and it's got that fingerprint sensor, so once you set a password, just like your phone, you can start using your fingerprint to, instead of having to type your password every time. Should your fingerprint not work for some reason, then you would use your password if that, if for some reason you just couldn't register your fingerprint at some point. Sometimes people, they might cut their finger and have a Band-Aid on it, and they're like, oh no, I can't use my fingerprints. Well, that's what the password's for. So you have both the password and the fingerprint sensor, And you probably will use the fingerprint sensor because it's a lot faster and easier. At least that's what I've learned with my phone. And they're just moving that over now to the PC. So yeah, this does it all. This will do the gaming. And there's the dock I'm talking about that you can use the Oculink with your own graphics card. If we continue to scroll down, we kind of get an exploded view of how this thing is assembled. And we continue to scroll down here, and you can see nice clean cable setup here. There's a little bit about how the NVMe's are positioned inside. It talks about 0 dongles. I'm a big fan of this because one of the reasons I stopped buying the Dell XPS line of laptop is it needed a dongle for everything. If I wanted a HDMI output, I needed to use a dongle. Anything I wanted to do with that laptop, I needed a dongle for. And I said enough of this nonsense and stopped buying Dell XPS laptops. So I wouldn't feel any differently about a mini PC. I wouldn't want dongles, except if you do want to use those USB 4s out as video outputs, you either need to buy a monitor that has a USB-C input, or you buy the adapter, which would be kind of like a dongle, right? That would just either be USB-C on one side and HDMI or DisplayPort on the other. Amazon sells theirs, they're cheap. So you could replace your cable altogether, then you wouldn't need a dongle. Or you could buy the little adapter, which is a dongle, to convert that to whatever kind of cable you need. So it's not completely dongle-less. If we look on the back, we've got 2 RJ45 LAN adapters. We've got the HDMI port, display port, the 2 USB ports. Well, there's one there and one in the front, in case you're wondering. And then the Oculink USB type A, that's for your keyboard or mouse, and a Kensington lock. It's like a bicycle lock. Keep somebody from walking away with your mini computer if you're going to put it somewhere where you're afraid someone could steal it. That's sold separately. Clear CMOS, it's a recessed button you'd use like an unfolded paper clip. You shouldn't ever need to use that unless you're in there monkeying around trying to, eke out more performance out of it. So if you leave it alone and use it the way the engineers designed it, you probably will never, ever need to clear that CMOS. There's your fingerprint, by the way. It's right on the top of the unit. And then your power button on the front, 2 USB 3.2 type A's, and the other USB 4s I mentioned up front. Your headphone, microphone, or speaker jack, that's there in the back. And you've got your Copilot button, whether or not you use it, right there on the front. I do believe these 2 pinholes are dynamic microphones, if I'm not mistaken. Now, some of the MINISFORUM naming can be a little bit confusing. Both of these computers are called AI X1 470s, but one's the Pro version. And this was the same on the 370. We demonstrated this. This is a little less powerful. The processor, I believe, is, well, I'm not sure now. This shows the Pro has the 470. I'd have to look at the specs on the non-Pro version, but I think it's a lesser CPU. It doesn't have as many bells, whistles, and features. It doesn't have the SD card slot. It doesn't have the fingerprint sensor. It doesn't have the Copilot. This one, you'd have to have an external power brick instead of having the power brick inside. Maybe it is the same CPU, though. I mean, the 470 would imply that it's a 470 processor, Carey. It's also smaller and lighter at about 1/3 of the weight, and it'll only hold 2 M.2s instead of 3 because it's physically limited, right? So you can buy a less expensive model that doesn't have every bell, whistle, and feature on it and save some money. On the other hand, you might want those bells, whistles, and features, and then, there you go, top dog right there. And it's kind of exciting because, as I mentioned, there aren't as many mini PCs and innovations coming out in 2026. So the fact we're getting one this early into the year, I suggest you savor it, because we're not going to see too many more based on what companies have been promoting. There hasn't been much in the way of new PCs. In fact, the only one who's been promoting any new PCs this year, as far as I can tell, is MINISFORUM. We still have 2 more that have yet to come out, the G1 and the G7. And I'm very interested in taking a look at those when they're available. After that, oh, and they make an N5 NAS light version, which is, I guess, literally made of lighter materials, but is otherwise the same as the N5. So that's it for the whole year as far as I know. Now, I do expect companies will have some surprises for us. This is all the information we have right now. So I'm super excited to take a look at this. I love this little guy right here. So if I had any complaints about this, I don't remember what they are. It's quiet, it's fast, the built-in power supply I love, the Oculink port, it's fully expandable. So if somebody said, look, I know you didn't really have much to complain about, but we made it better anyway. How do you feel about it? Okay. So you want to make it even better? Sure. So that's what we're looking at today. Super shout out to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEYs. They're the ones that I buy my Windows and Office license keys from. And you'll pay the same price I pay, and you'll buy the same software I buy. I run a business. I have to sell legitimate software to my clients. Otherwise, I'm held accountable, potentially, if a software audit were to find that the software was not legit and the company got in trouble for that, then that would be passed on to me since I'm the supplier. And things would not be looking good for my business. So I have to be very careful and responsible, or I'm not looking for the cheapest price. I'm looking for the best price for legitimate quality product with support. And that's what VIP-URCDKEY offers. If you buy a key from them, you've got 6 months of free support. And if you use my coupon code of Carey, you'll get 25% off whatever the price is that they're offering. And by the way, when I'm buying product keys for my clients, little secret between me and you, this is how I do it. And yeah, I enter the code Carey at checkout. I'm literally paying the same price you are. And you're not making a telephone call for activation, none of that nonsense. It's all real, legit licensed keys. And we always have this available. It's in our video notes of all of our videos. So I would recommend, don't buy the product keys ahead of time, because then your 6 months of free support starts ticking. Wait until you need it. Then go over here, buy it. They accept PayPal if you want to use PayPal. Not many do. And they'll send you an email with how you will download the software along with your product code and how to activate it. If you still have any problems, you just reach out to their free support. They'll get you straightened out. And worst case scenario, reach out to us directly here on the channel. There's not too many times where I can say that a company that's not mine, that I don't run, I'm so confident in it that if you have problems and they don't fix it for you, you tell me and I'll make sure it gets fixed. And the reason I can say that is it very rarely ever happens. We've had it happen a couple times. And if it happened regularly, we wouldn't be using them anymore. Okay, so you're actually doing me a favor if you make me aware of a problem, and you're doing yourself a favor so that I can get the problem resolved for you. In most cases, it never gets that far because most people never have a problem to begin with. And if they do, support will take care of you. So we're talking about very few people I can slip through that fine filter before you would finally reach out to me. But I guarantee you won't be reaching out to anybody else after that. And if that were to become a pattern, like if we started getting a lot of it, we wouldn't recommend them anymore. Now they know that, so they're highly motivated to make sure you're happy. I'm highly motivated to make sure you're happy. If you're happy and they're happy, I'm happy. It's not a commission-based link, so if you buy it or you don't buy it, it's really for you to benefit from, okay? It's for you. Don't do it for me. Do it for you. Finding a legitimate key seller at a reasonable price that has support and will back you up on the internet is no easy chance. Man, oh man, the digging I had to go through, or the different payment methods they want you to pay with that are sketchy. Some of them can be quite sketchy. So yeah, I'm not paying with Zelle, thank you very much. But in any event, thanks to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEYs for supporting us here, supporting you guys, and making sure you have a trustworthy partner for Windows Office and Microsoft Office and Microsoft Windows. All right, are we ready to get this bad boy fired up? So I'll just leave the stand on it. And I will say, you know, again, this unit is still available on Amazon. This is last year's unit, which means it's probably pretty aggressively priced. I haven't checked. And I love everything about this. So I can't even imagine if this is just more of, if this is more of this, how could I not like it? But the proof is in the pudding. So let's plug it in and find out if there's something I don't like. Let's see. Oh, let's open it up first. Let's take a look at the inside, because since, you know, in a lot of these, it's pretty common for the RAM to be soldered on. And the benefit for that is the RAM is much cheaper and faster that way. It's also more reliable. The downside is it's not upgradable. But if it's a lot of soldered on RAM, it won't matter anyway. It would be a bridge you wouldn't cross because you needed to. That would be a bridge you just mentally decided you want to do it just for fun or just because you can. So I'm not too worried about most of the high-end units with soldered on RAM. The benefits far outweigh, you know, that lack of upgradability. But as I mentioned, this one, I'm looking on the bottom of it here. I've got a little rubber plug. Wonder what that's for. But this one does have what appears to be two DDR5 sockets. The good news again is that they're using SODIMM laptop style memory. So if you shop for memory, you'll see that the laptop style memory, the SODIMM memory, is cheaper than desktop memory. So even then you're saving money. So if you, unless you have RAM and storage laying around, it's still cheaper to buy it from the manufacturer because they're buying it in massive quantities and they're getting a much better price than you or I can get. And you're not potentially having any compatibility problems with the parts you selected, which then may result in an overall less than desirable experience. Now, I'm a pretty heavy, intense Windows user. Windows 11 Pro on my laptop, I run PowerDirector. I edit 4K videos on it. It has 32 gigs of soldered on memory. At no point am I using this laptop where I feel like I need more memory. I think we have an old mentality that we can't shake off about memory. And my goal this year is to just shake people, smack them, and go, wake up. You don't need to do that anymore. Now, there are still people who do, but they're the same people who always have. If I want to run local AI models on this, having more memory on this is going to make that process faster. I don't do that kind of work. I may never do that kind of work. The kind of work I do, I'm not even utilizing 32 gigs of RAM, even in high-end video processing. And I like to think, from my experience, I'm using my computer much more than any of my customers are, for sure. So, do I have to take out this other screw? I think I might. There's a little rubber stopper right here. I don't know what it's for. Let's take a look. Remember, I don't look at any of the directions on these. I like to open it up, have that first time experience genuine and honest without any preconceived ideas, except for the preconceived idea I have from previous experience. That looks like it should pop up. Doesn't want to. So figuring this stuff out for me is kind of fun. I like it. But I don't know what that little piece is for. And it almost feels like it's stuck. It feels like you're not supposed to take it off. Like we have the 4 screws removed, and notice there's no rubber feet that's blocking them. And you can see we have a lot of play here. And where it's being held down is pretty much right there. So I have to imagine that it has to peel up. And it's a little rubber plug, which normally these just pop out. And this one seems like it's been glued. Ah,
because it was glued down. Wow. Okay. Good to know. And there's a screw right there. Now I'm assuming that little guy has to come out. Let's see if it makes any difference. Oh, that made a big difference. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And anything attached? Nothing's attached here. Nice, clean removal. Very good. So no wires to deal with, no antennas, no fans. Everything, let's go close up here. Everything just like so. So we've got a fan here, we've got a fan here. And then we've got some arrows. There's an arrow pointing to each of those screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know what's under there, but I do know how to find out. Now, MINISFORUM does have videos on their channel, such as teardown videos and unboxing videos that are quite short if you want to cheat. But not me. I want to do this the fun way and do a little Indiana Jones exploring here. And let's see how this is put together. Because it looks like we've got 3 chambers. It looks like we've got this chamber, and then the cooler, which would be its own chamber. And it looks like these 2 top chambers do come off. So I'm going to guess maybe RAM is under here and SSDs are under here. But I'm just guessing until I get this opened up. I don't know what's under there. Exciting times. I'm opening Al Capone's vault here, and I got a feeling there's going to be more in it than what was in his. There we go. And that should just lift off, maybe. Maybe no. Sometimes what I see as 2 chambers may be a big L-shaped chamber, because when you've removed the screws, just as a tip from a disassembler, it should lift straight up. So if something else is holding it, then I realize, oh, there's not a seam there. I think this is all one big piece all the way around. So there's a screw here, 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 and here, and those all have triangles next to them. And I'll do my best when I take these screws out, even though they're all the same as far as this back plate goes. I'm going to try and just put them right in order here in the way I've taken them out in location. So there's 4 more screws. So we just removed 1, 2, and then right here on the edge, 3 and 4. Now does this lift up? Oh, easy. Still something holding on right over here, so there may be some thermal tape or something happening. Let's see. There we go. This is the... Oh boy, how am I going to do this? We've got a plug. That's your Wi-Fi card that you can, well, still can't see it, huh? Let's remove this plug right here. Try and show you what I'm doing. And we'll remove this plug right here. So what I was removing, oh, we have another plug. Ooh. That one right there. Okay, those are really tiny. You've got to be very gentle with them. This, believe this or not, let me bring this up to the camera because you're not going to believe this. This is your power supply. That little rinky-dinky thing right there. Look at that. Isn't technology amazing? And of course, that fan is to keep your power supply cool. On top of that, we've got some wires here. and they're all different connectors, so you really don't have to worry about plugging them into the wrong place. They're only going to fit in one place, and the length of the cable is pretty much going to make it clear where it goes back. Now we get to the good stuff. So look how easy this is to work on. Once you remove that power supply out of your way, sitting underneath the power supply are your RAM modules. These are your NVMe sockets, and they do give you extra heat sinks and thermal pads for the additional 2 locations. So you're not on your own with that. That's your Wi-Fi card. That's your BIOS battery. Nothing proprietary about that. Just pops out, pop another one in. And it appears that, unfortunately, they've only given us one 32 gig module. Now, you can say unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective on this. If they gave us 2 16s instead of one 32, let me just verify that says 32 on it. Yeah, it says 32 right on there. If they gave us 2 16s, we'd be running 32 gigs in dual channel mode. That improves the performance of the onboard graphics and a little bit of the machine being in dual channel. On the other hand, at the price of RAM today, what they've done is they've set you up for 64 gigs of dual channel. So all you have to do is buy another 32 gig module and plug it in right here above it, and now you'll have 64 gigs of dual channel. Imagine the other side of this. Let's say your school says, well, they should have given me 2 16s. Well, if they gave you 2 16s, then in order to go to 64 gig dual channel, you'd have to buy 2 32s. Do you know how much that costs today? And it says it'll do 128 gigs of RAM. That means each one of these that you buy could be 64 gigs each. Do you know how much one of those cost? And then you have to buy 2 of them? That'll get you to your 128. Just open your wallet. So the pro side is, this is ready for the most common, affordable, reasonable upgrade, which is to go from 32 to 64 with 1 stick of 32 and another stick of 32. Otherwise, you'd be pulling out 2 16 gig modules and buying twice as many 32 gig modules. You'd have to buy 2 instead of 1. And then you'd have 2 16 gig modules left over that I guess you could sell on eBay or something, or maybe you've got another system you could use it in, but those are the only 2 slots you've got. You can't also use those in here at the same time. So, I mean, if you were the manufacturer, how would you sell it? I think that's the logic and the reasoning, and ultimately is decided by what is actually being sold. Like, you might want it a certain way, but you might represent 1 out of every 500 buyers. So that's interesting that you want it a different way than most people, but I suspect they do it this way because that's what most people want. I personally would rather see 1 32 gig stick in here than 2 16s, but that's just my preference. But if you're wondering why, or you're turning your nose up at that, you have to remember how much RAM costs right now, and that's very justifiable, and it makes it much, much more affordable to simply buy that 1 32 gig module and add it in there, and you're at 64 gigs. That's an easy upgrade. Now, before I put this back together, let me take a quick look over at the chat, see if you have any questions while this is open, and we'll fire it up for the first time and see how she runs. Also, I want to, I think we said, Mara said we had an email. Let me check my email. Oh, Mark Gaines sends us an Amazon gift card. Here's my contribution in lieu of Super Chat. Thank you, Mark. And Mark Baggett renews membership, now a member for 44 months. He says, thanks for a great 44 months and counting. Well, thank you. W.E. Holmes said, yeah, I definitely prefer 1 32 gig module for upgradability. Andy said it's another $300 for dual channel. Yeah, well, that would make sense. Price it out yourself. You say without the power supply, it's the same size as any other mini PC. I still can't get over how small that power supply is. That's crazy. The other thing that's interesting is I'm wondering what this foam pad is for. It's like a foam pad. Where is that going? This is like, it's going to sit over the NVMe drives. This goes in the corner, and then this, oh, this goes over the RAM. Okay. Cool. And this box right here that says L and R, well, I don't know about you, but that looks like those are speakers. So if one of these cables turns on this fan, this other thicker cable is power coming out of the power supply to power the motherboard. And this super teeny tiny thin cable goes to what appears to be a left and right speaker. Now look, I don't know how much separation you're going to have if those are in fact speakers and they're that close together. In order to hear things moving side to side, you need to move the speakers as far apart as possible. Still, maybe they sound good, maybe they're not even speakers. But it does explain why we have 3 wires on this piece. Also, I was just playing here just to see how that fits in. It's like closing the refrigerator door to make sure the light goes out. Look at that. I mean, it's clearly meant to go in there for sure. It fits perfectly. No struggle. Slips in, locks in position. Beautiful fit and finish. Martin Erickson said, I prefer soldered DDR5 for the best GPU performance. Yeah, the DDR5 that is soldered in is usually going to be faster, cheaper, and more reliable. So if I have an opportunity to get a machine with DDR5, if I can get it with 64 gigs, I will. Even though it's expensive, I know it's going to last a lot longer. My laptop is 32 gig soldered on DDR5. There's never been an occasion where I felt like I wish I had more RAM. And I slam on this computer every day. It's usually not just doing one thing. I've got it doing several things. Mara even more so on her computer, but she's doing a lot of the AI stuff with image generation to help with the thumbnail creations and other projects that she works on. So she really needs a dedicated graphics card in order to achieve those levels of AI. Because what we're getting out of these CPUs may seem impressive until you see what a graphics card, a high-end graphics card, can do in AI processing. But again, how many people do you know do that? Mara's the only one I know. Let's see. Looking back in your chat just for any questions here. So you're paying $200 for a refresh CPU? Yeah, you know, I don't know the price difference, but that would make sense to me. I think that's a pretty common number for any CPU manufacturer to go from one generation to the refreshed same generation. Yeah, on the very highest end flagship product they make. Yeah, the flagship high-end CPUs are not the discount CPUs, and so they will be priced accordingly. And if you're looking for a smaller difference between previous versus refresh, you need to step down a few tiers down to the Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 level. And same is true with Intel. That's pretty much been industry standard for the last 10 years. But you should expect, if something is, you know, the leader of the pack, then it is in general the most admired and desired and will sell for the most amount of money. They don't generally give you the best value. A lot of people will tell you, for example, if you want to buy an Intel rig for gaming, stick around the i5, you know, 14th gen. a lot of games don't take advantage of i7 or i9 processors. And at the same time, those processors are going to cost you a lot more. The i7 is more, the i9 is more. And if there's a refresh of the i9, say let's go from the 13th gen to the 14th gen was a refresh, yeah, you're going to pay a premium for that latest and greatest. Remember, if you want to be first, if you want the latest and greatest, you will pay more, and it will be exponentially more depending on which tier. The latest and greatest i3 versus the latest and greatest i5. It's industry-wide, been that way for decades. So yeah, that seems very reasonable to me. Let's see. One of the things I love that MINISFORUM does is they make variations. They don't say it's this or nothing. They've got the regular AI X1, and then they have just the X1 Lite. So the X1 Lite drops all the AI stuff. It's a small, typical mini PC, and you can probably pick it up for, you know, half the cost of this. So don't be put off by price. If you find that that's too much money, then it's too much computer for you. So what you're looking for then in that case, if you're looking at the lower prices, is you're looking for a computer that will be adequate performance, or preferably more than enough for performance for the way that you're using it. If what you're looking at is the price instead of looking at the performance, and if you're looking at that in a negative way, it's because it's more power than you need. Because the people who need the power, it's pennies. Like it's the option to have this much power at that price. This is pretty much all you got. So you can take it or leave it. And if you can afford to leave it, then you probably never needed it to begin with. Let's see. Other questions? Andy says MINISFORUM has great build quality. I agree 100%. I'm very happy with their build quality, their support, their prices, and the variety of mini PCs that they make that are unlike anybody else's in the market. Show me somebody else who has a mini PC like this. Just that design. Maybe Apple. And then let me see that price tag and tell me it's easy to work on. Yeah, those words aren't going to go together with the word Apple. Let's see if I can put this back together. If you have questions for me, I'll glance up here. But first, let me try and do this while it's fresh on my mind. So remember, I don't necessarily memorize where all the cables come off. I know that this whole unit. Which way did this come off? Hold on a second. Power supply goes this way, right? Yeah. So this cable, it kind of forces me to orient this correctly because this cable fits into one connector. That's it. There's no other connector on this board that looks anything like this. And then this will be somewhere close to it within that many inches. And this one will be that many inches from that. So I can tell already that this one is going to go right next to the RAM. And there appears to be another fan header here that's going to the other fan here. And then this one, this little teeny tiny one, I believe that's our speakers. And I pulled that from maybe right behind this button. Is that where that is? It's such a tiny little connector. I can barely see it. I should put my bigger glasses on, but it kind of looks like, oh yeah, that's where it goes. It's like behind this button. And then over here, we'll save the big connector right here. That's our power supply. And that's that big 24-pin connector when you're building a machine. But on a mini PC, this is what it looks like, at least on this one. And then we'll push that in, and you should hear it or feel it click into place. And you can give these cables just a very light tug, just to make sure they're fully seated. And I'm not quite sure how they routed these cables, so I want to be cautious. that I route the cables around this cable in particular. I want to route it around the RAM. And these other cables, we want to kind of push them off to the side. And that way, we're not having anything sitting on top of hot RAM. Maybe this cable just goes that way. That makes more sense. Keep it away from the RAM. Either go around it, go above it, but don't go, if possible, don't go up on top of it. And I would have to play my own video back to pay attention to the way that those cables were routed. It's probably not critical. It's just I'm very OCD in wanting to put things back exactly the way they were. And it helps if manufacturers give you little tracks for the wires to run in, because there are no tracks here. So oftentimes if there's no tracks, that means it's more of an aesthetic reason than a reliability issue. So that just sits flat like so. And we'll go ahead and start putting these screws back in. And I think we can go back to camera 2. There we go. Now, again, I take the screws and lay them out in the order they came out, but all of the ones that go on this plate all appear to be the same length and thread styles, so it doesn't look like this was necessary, but it's still my process regardless, because you can never go wrong doing it this way. Then it looks like we go down here. And then the middle one. And you'll notice I don't over tighten these screws. We're just putting them in until they come to a stop and they're nice and snug. Don't crank them down real heavy. Right there, that screwdriver stops. Just a little bit of a tweak there, just it's tight. That's it. No more than that. You could snap the heads off of the screws. Again, we've got little arrows to remind us where the screws go. So I'm looking at this and I see little indentations, but then I notice the little triangles, little white wireframe triangles pointing to the holes, indicating to us where the screws go. It's a nice touch. And this piece, does this go on this way or that way? I can see the hole for the screw that goes right there is going to align here. So we'll just set that down like so, and it should just seat. Something in our way? No, everything looks good. Yeah, this looks good. It does kind of feel like it bows up a little bit, but I think maybe that's what the screws do, is they hold it in position for you. Oh, it's probably this foam that I'm hitting. So when I'm pushing it down, it's these pieces here are squishing down on the speaker foam. That makes sense. Okay, so do expect when I set that down just with gravity, there's a gap here. But on this side, there's no gap. It seats really firmly. So that would explain, that's how you know the foam is being used, right? Because there's some resistance against it. So for this, we're going to go to the far corners. Don't be thrown by these inner holes here. That is likely for your VESA mount. I'm going to go to the opposite angle here just because of the foam. Not that it's really important, but I want to make sure that foam gets squished equally Again, it's just audio that we're isolating with that foam, directing the audio to force the audio out through the bottom rather than letting it leak out through the sides, and then it might have a weird tone quality. See, hearing something clicking. I don't know if there was a I don't like to hear that, and that's why you don't want to over tighten, right? But I'm wondering if there was a clip or something that I'm missing. If so, that was the sound of the clip. Oh, I did that one already, didn't I? Which one did I miss? This one? Explains that. Okay, there we go. And then finally, you know, I mean, if it were me, I'm not a big fan of this little screw that they're covering up with the little rubber foot here. It's not even a foot, it's just a little rubber cover. And just in case that little clicking sound I heard isn't normal, I don't know if it's normal or not, so I'm going to just set that aside, and I'm not putting that on yet till I know with confidence I haven't damaged or reassembled something incorrectly. But it looks perfectly good on the outside. And we're going to fire this bad boy up for the very first time. So let's grab a power cable. This is going to be one of those 2-pin power cables, which I happen to have an extra of right here. I need a keyboard and a mouse, so I'll grab this one over here. As always, right here. Turn them on, take the dongle. I will plug the dongle into the USB 2 port back here. No sense wasting a high-speed USB port on a keyboard or a mouse. And then I need an HDMI out so we can capture the screen with the streamer. So HDMI out right here. And right to the back to the HDMI port. We'll turn this on. Oh, that's the fingerprint reader, Carey. Power button right there. Okay, so let's switch over to the streamer. And I will make myself a little bit smaller here. See us boot for the first time together. There it goes. I'm curious what version of Windows we've got on here, who makes the adapters for the Wi-Fi and the wired network cards, and just verify our configuration and do some Windows updates. But of course, we don't go onto the internet until after we set up the out-of-box experience on any new computer or freshly built Windows install. We always leave the internet unplugged and disconnected. So let's see how that goes. Edward Bass joins us, says hello. Welcome into Edward. Ron Barnish says hello. And let me get rid of camera one for a moment. United States, yes. United States, yes. US keyboard. Do I want to add a secondary language keyboard? No. Connect me. I don't have internet. See that? Very good. Thank you, MINISFORUM. Accept the license agreement. I don't even hear this thing on. All right, username. We'll put in user. Enter with a blank password so it takes me right to the desktop. Turn off everything but location settings. That's going to set my date and time for me in Windows and in the BIOS after we connect to the internet the first time. And it'll keep it synchronized from that point forward, including any minutes lost or gained naturally from the clock, as well as at any daylight saving time observed. It'll self-adjust. You never have to do this by hand ever again. We go through our final setup here, and that'll take us to the desktop. And when the desktop comes up, we'll plug into the network. So while that's running, let me look on the floor and find an Ethernet cable that I'm standing on. And we can bring back, let's see, camera 1 while we're waiting. There we go. All this so far is exactly what we would expect it to be. And in just a moment, we'll get to the desktop and we'll plug our Ethernet cable in. Now, I could just go on Wi-Fi too, but I don't like doing that when we're live on camera. But you certainly can. But just wait till you get to the desktop first if you want the best experience. All right, so there's our desktop. And once again, if I get rid of camera 1, you'll be able to watch that lower corner. When I plug the Ethernet cable in, it doesn't matter which of the 2 Ethernet jacks I use, just pick one, plug it in, watch that lower right corner. That'll turn into a flashing monitor, and then when it goes solid, then all of these icons in the start menu will populate based on my region. So different people that live in different areas of the planet will get different options here. And that's determined via your internet connection, if you're wondering why it works that way. Now, if we come over to, well, we'll do a couple things. First, I'm going to go to, close this out. I am curious if those are speakers under there. Let's see. What does it offer me for speakers? Yeah, right. Well, is that it? I'm not exactly sure. Let's go to Windows Update. So Settings and Windows Update. Retry all. And I like to turn some features on while I'm in here. That includes this, 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 and I like to turn this off. Okay, that's just my preferences. And so while that runs and checks for updates, I got, what are we updating? Let's go to our system properties and see how this shipped. They gave us 1 terabyte of storage, yeah, 32 gigs of RAM, correct. The brand new AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470 just released. That's probably still hot off the presses. It's Windows 11 Pro. It is 25H2. That's our very first installation of 25H2 we've seen from the factory. That happened much earlier than I was expecting. I thought we wouldn't see it until next month. So kudos to MINISFORUM for being on top of that. And of course, there's still going to be updates to it. And if we go to the device manager, right click device manager, we can go to the network adapters and see who's making those. MediaTek makes the Wi-Fi 7 adapter, which is also Bluetooth. And Realtek makes the 2.5 gig Ethernet controllers. So there you go. If you were thinking of putting a different OS like Linux on there, and say you didn't have MediaTek drivers for that, you could always replace the unit very easily. It's not soldered in or anything if you wanted to. And as far as Realtek or Intel goes, those are the 2 names you want to see above anything else, in my opinion. When it comes to your LAN adapters, either one is acceptable. So they've gone with Realtek here, and their 2.5 gig adapters. So I am very happy with that. You know, the 10 gig adapters are nice, but honestly, who's using 10 gig adapters yet? I don't know that we'll see that for a very long time. We do use some computers here in Studio C with 10 gig adapters, I think 2 of them. That's it. And everybody else runs at 2.5 because, quite frankly, 2.5 is plenty. So while this updates, let me check our power settings just to make sure. Let's see, I'll do edit. Yeah, edit power plan, and let me make sure the screen isn't going to go to sleep on us anytime soon. Yeah, well, set the never. That's fine. while this is updating, I am kind of curious if those are speakers. Let's start without data. Turn that off. Confirm. Continue. Okay. Let's jump over to YouTube. And let's go to Carey Holzman's channel. I'm just curious if I get any audio. I won't pick this video. Let's pick something else. Oh yeah.
When your cable internet slows down, your life slows down. You fall a step behind.
Hey, YouTube, and everyone in chat, this is your old pal Nutty. I came out of hibernation because I heard Uncle Mitch is back from traveling the world, and boy does he have stories to tell. So without further ado, bring on Uncle Mitch and Uncle Carey. Yay! Bye!
Yeah, those are definitely speakers. And you know, they're facing down towards the table. So they're not the most full sounding speakers. If you wanted mostly, you know, bleeps and blips and things like that, they would handle that fine. As for, you know, any sort of dynamic range for listening to music, they're definitely not cutting it. But the fact that they've got them at all is a surprise. So again, depending on your personal preferences there. Let me close that. And let me come back over here. Yeah, see, like to have that coming from here is pretty nice. I like that. Just those regular Windows bleeps, like when you plug something USB, to hear that through the machine versus through some speakers that I was blaring music out of, and then it's way too loud. Now, it will be one or the other. Although, I think there's an audio mixer that you can use, but you still, I believe, can only choose one output device at a time. So if you want the audio to go out through your own personal speakers, if you want the audio to go out via Bluetooth, if you want the audio to go out via your monitor's HDMI cable or DisplayPort, or if you want the audio to go out, I'm missing one, the internal speakers. You have to pick one at a time. Andy says, I don't care for speakers in a Mini. Well, that's the great thing about it. You don't have to use them. I love having things I don't need. What I don't love is needing things I don't have. So it's not like it's an expensive add-on item. I'm sure they're relatively inexpensive to throw the speakers in there. And Doma 2000 said there should be a BIOS option too. Yeah, you know, there very well could be. And so far, I hear nothing coming out of this. I mean, it is dead, silent, nothing. I suppose if we put these two side by side and we put them in a race, this one is going to win, but by about that much. Missed it by that much. This one is just a slightly bigger brother to the previous model. If you're a bargain hunter, buy the previous model. If you're somebody that the latest and greatest is still not good enough for you, then buy the latest and greatest. These just came out, they were just released, so they are going to be like any other product just released. They'd be hard to find and expensive. After they've been out for a while, especially if something new comes out afterwards, the price goes down, the demand goes down. That's usually the way it works. The downside is the more we wait throughout 2026, the more expensive RAM and storage are likely going to keep getting. At some point in 2027, it's predicted prices will return. And some people say as late as summer of 2027. So just keep that in mind in how you make your purchasing decision. If you wait for a cheaper price, you may be just paying more for the RAM and storage. We were talking yesterday about the coolers I had to replace. Well, the fans I had to replace for a customer because someone stole his cooler fans. And I needed the fan buckles. And I could have replaced his coolers with scythe coolers, but I would have had to have dismantled the older cooler, since we don't have the fan and fan buckles, take off the brackets, take off the thermal compound, clean it all up, take a brand new scythe cooler, put it in. That would have saved the customer about $35 per cooler. But the customer would have taken that $35 per cooler he was saving and paid that and a little bit more for the time involved for me to do it, versus just slapping some fans on. And at the end of the day, that was cheaper. And I forgot to mention that yesterday, that, putting the fans on is very little labor, but having to remove the entire fan assembly, the bracket that it affixes to, which also then requires taking the back panel off of the case, removing that. Then, okay, we're going to save $35 per cooler, but you got to pay for all that labor to take the old one off, clean it up, put the new one back on. The new one has a whole different mounting mechanisms. And one way or the other, customers pretty much paying the same amount of money. Just one is more work, more time, and the price works out to be about the same. So they just slap the fan, get the fan buckles, and by the way, you go, oh, you're throwing away the rest of where it's going in a recycle bin. Well, that's where the other parts were going to go. If I had replaced with a scythe cooler, where do you think those parts I was removing were going to go? Recycle bin. So it all worked out exactly the same. Question is, do we want it to cost the same and be fast and easy, or do we want it to cost the same and take longer and make it more complicated? And I was thinking about that yesterday after we had that conversation. I said, oh, I should have mentioned that. Didn't occur to me till after I thought about it for a second, because I did discuss that with the customer. Because I said, we could get a less expensive cooler, but your labor price, whatever you're saving on the cooler, you'll be spending that and more for me to do the work. And then also, they won't be ready as soon. I need more time. So if he wanted it faster, he wanted it cheaper, it required some waste. Well, regardless, we were going to have waste. Andy says, I hope you'll run Cinebench and can compare the result. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll run Cinebench as soon as we do this round of updates. We'll reboot. We're making good time today, and we'll see how Cinebench runs. I'll also test the Crystal Disk Mark and see how fast the NVMe drive is. Speaking of which, if I right-click here, can we go full screen? Okay, that's updating, that's updating. To that. I am 4K. Let's see. Display. Yep. We dropped this down to 1080. There we go. That's better. And I'll grab my flash drive and copy those utilities over while we're waiting. So let's plug the flash drive back here somewhere. So the only USB type A ports, because these are going to be USB 4 type Cs back here. The only USB type A we have is just that one for the keyboard and mouse. So I have to come around here if I want the fast type A ports. They're just in the front. Would have been nice to have a couple in the back. There's the sound of the USB. Yeah, the one USB port and then the Oculinker in the back. And the only type A USB you've got in the back is a USB 2. A little limited on the I/O there, but nothing's perfect. Let's go back over to USB drive and let's copy off. I want VLC. Whoops. VLC. I want Uncle Carey's Windows 11 Optimizer, of course. I want HW Info and Crystal Disk Mark Portable and Cinebench R23. And the other thing I want to make sure of is we have the latest AMD chipset in Adrenalin drivers. Because before you run any testing, If you're not testing with those latest drivers, your test results cannot be trusted as being accurate. Now, right now, I don't see any AMD Adrenalin software installed on here. Now, that doesn't mean it's not installed, but it means the application, at the very least, is not appearing in the system tray. So if I look over here under all applications, do I see AMD software? I do. So MINISFORUM did put the AMD software on it. It's just not showing up down in the system tray. And I'm just curious, what version of the software do we have? So 25.20.4, I believe, is old. So if we click on that, it was released the 4th of December 2025, but I don't see where to update it. Settings, nope, my bad, back. Settings, release notes. The inconsistency with AMD software drives me crazy because I'm accustomed to having an update button right here. And it's not here. And I've seen this before. And the only way I know how to fix this is to go to AMD and download the latest version. Because I can't tell that that's the latest version and I can't find the update button on it. So the exact same software, this is how crazy this is. This is one of the things that bothers me about AMD as a company. They might make some good hardware, but their software, boy, oh boy, they just need to pick a lane and stick with it. So let's jump on the Adrenalin Edition software, hit download. So we can do all this while we're installing updates, it's no harm. And this says it's 26.1.1. See, here's the thing. You should be able to type in up here, if we go to the AMD software, right? And we bring that up. There's no check for updates. There's nothing here that tells us there's a new version. This doesn't look like it starts with a 26, does it? So what's the point of this window? Just to give me information? Well, okay, now what do I do? This information doesn't confirm if it's the latest. Where did it go? Oh, sure. Do you want to let AMD report your experiences? How can I report this? How would I know? Where is it? Is it even in here? But we install the exact same AMD Adrenalin software. And this is an AMD nitpick. This is something I just despise about AMD. It drives me crazy that you have to be a technical person to know how to use their equipment properly. We'll go to downloads and we're going to double click on that Adrenalin software that's already installed, just so we can get a version of it that verifies we have the latest version, which is also a newer version. And we could have done this. Here's the deal. We could have done this 6 months ago. So I don't understand what version the manufacturers are using that's different from what we get as consumers. I just can't follow that. And I think it's not letting us install because Windows updates are getting in the way. So after we do Windows updates, we will do that. So let's go back over to Windows Update. Let's see how we're doing. Yeah, we're getting there. So as soon as that's finished, we'll reboot. Then we'll do the Adrenalin update and make sure that that includes our chipset drivers. At that point, we can benchmark because now we know we're running the fastest, most secure, and stable drivers. And those aren't just any drivers. That's your main drivers to your whole system. That's your video output. That is your chipset, your I/O. No drivers on your system are more important than those two, video and chipset. If there was one thing you could do to make your computer go faster, it would be to make sure you have the latest video driver. I don't care if it's NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, make sure you have the latest chipset driver. When's the last time you've checked? This holds true for AMD and Intel. So you're paying for power, but because you're not updating and you think your Windows updates are taking care of it, how do you know for sure your Windows updates are taking care of it? You just have faith in it? You have to check by hand. And I don't suggest you do that all the time, but certainly once every few months would probably be in your best interest. Only takes a minute once you know what to look for. So when we bring up the new AMD Adrenalin software, I'm going to show you how the update is right there on the home page. You don't have to go digging around to find it, because I've never found it, by the way. But when we put the regular version on, it looks nearly identical, but more user-friendly, much more information, and it's right there up front, and I'll show you. If you're bringing up your AMD, if you run an AMD system, and you bring up your Adrenalin and you don't see a check for updates button, you're running an old version. Andy says if I click on the gear, the update page appears. Well, we're waiting. Let me explore that. Full screen over here. Let's bring up the AMD Adrenalin software again. Click on the gear. So I see nothing about updates. Nothing. This tells us about the software, but nowhere do I see. So you tell me, Andy, what am I missing here? Where is my update button? I'm looking all over this page, and nowhere do I see anything to check if I have the latest update. There's the about. No update here. No update here. No update here, here. Anywhere down here, no update, no updates, no updates. So what am I missing, Andy? Where is it? But when I put on the new version, you can't miss it. It's right in your face. So why does AMD do this two different ways? If you get it from the manufacturer, it seems like you don't get the updates. If you do it yourself, you do get the updates. You know who doesn't do that? Literally anyone else. AMD is the only one who does it. And if there's a logic to why they spend time developing two different versions of the same piece of software, one that's limited and one that isn't, I'd love to understand why they're wasting money on developers to write the same application twice. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to replace this because it drives me crazy, but also because we know there's a newer version and it's not offering it to us, and it's offering us no way to check automatically. You have to be tech savvy enough to know, which is why I'm telling you, so you can be tech savvy enough to know if you weren't already. So let's close that back out. And we'll just finish this one last update here. We'll reboot. We'll do that AMD Adrenalin software. Oh, I guess I don't need the flash drive installed anymore, right? We're done with that, so put that away. And if you have any questions for me, please do ask in the chat right now where we're waiting for a restart, and I'll do my best to provide an answer for you. And he says it works on his AMD Adrenalin page. So that inconsistency where you've got something I don't have, it makes sense if it's a brand new product and I've got an earlier version than you. But this has been going on for a few years now. Nothing has changed over the years. And I don't know how AMD can explain this to me. So you're looking at something going, Carey, I have an update. And I'm like, I know you do. And you need to respond, I know you don't, Carey, and challenge it. It's not there, I just showed you. But when I put the new version on from AMD, the same people who made the version we've got now, it's right there. You don't have to click on any hidden menu. It's right there in your face. which is how it should have been from the get-go. And I can't imagine why they're still investing any time or effort in making a version that strips that out. I can't wrap my head around it. There must be a reason for it. I have no imagination that can come up with any excuse. It's just a waste of money, and it just ties to consumer confusion. The install manager is not installed. Well, why not? If I go in, what is the point of putting on a driver without an install manager if that's the only way you can check for new updates when you make an install manager and it takes about as much time and effort to put it in as one driver? Like when I download the driver I'm showing you, we're going to get exactly the same screen, but we're going to get a bunch more options. That should be the only version of the driver AMD makes, in my opinion. They've overcomplicated things. And until we get the education out, there's a ton of AMD users that aren't getting the best performance out of their computer because they're completely unaware that they're running old drivers. But they love AMD, don't they? Well, maybe if you learn some of these caveats that AMD does that Intel doesn't do, you'd realize that they're not all they're made out to be on the internet. There's some pretty significant discrepancies, particularly in AMD software. And I really wish AMD would focus a bit more on making the software better. That's all I'm trying to say. And you will see this all the time on pre-builds, all the time. But if you build it yourself, you'll likely never experience it. It should be consistent. Hopefully here we're just about done and we'll be able to reboot. We're about 90 minutes into today's broadcast. I think we might be able to end this on the 2 hours or pretty close to it. The Cinebench test will take 20 minutes and the Crystal Disk Mark will probably take 5 minutes. Overall, that right there, without any further discussion, will take us right to our 2-hour goal. But of course, I'm always happy to go a bit long. If you guys have questions, you want to interact, I love that. So especially now when we're waiting, it's a great time to interact with me here in our live chat room. Bikeman says the newer AMD 26.1.1 driver has optional AI bundle included now. Thankfully, that part is optional. Yeah, well, again, some people, especially if you're a developer, if you work with computers for a living, that AI bundle couldn't come soon enough, especially on a machine this powerful for AI. But if you're buying a machine that does AI, it'd be like buying a 4x4 pickup truck, but you never plan on going off-road. You're paying extra for your insurance, your maintenance, the complexity of a transaxle and being able to split the power between all the wheels. But you never want that feature. You're never going to use the feature. You're never planning to take the road off truck. The truck off road. You paid a lot of money for something you're not fully utilizing. And, you know, people do this all the time. I like the looks of the new Ford Bronco, but they don't make a non-4-wheel drive version of that. If they had a rear-wheel drive, just 2 wheels, rear-wheel drive version of the Ford Bronco, just like my Chevy Blazer had, I would buy it. I don't want a transaxle. I will never take it off-road. I don't want to pay the extra for all that technology. I don't want to pay the maintenance on that technology, and I don't want to pay the insurance, because if you have a 4-wheel drive, at least for me, the insurance goes up significantly, plus the lower gas mileage. If Ford made a version of the Bronco that was rear-wheel drive only, I would buy it. if you're looking at an AI computer and you have no plans to ever use AI in your life, why spend extra? Just go get the AI version of the MINISFORUM, the non-AI version. The X1 Lite is what you'd be looking for. Save you a lot of money, and you won't have to deal with that AI stuff. But you'll probably regret it in a couple of years. If my predictions are correct, you're going to start using software that requires AI. And when it needs it and you don't have it, it's going to use it off the internet, and it's going to be very slow. And you're going to say, I wish I would have bought the faster computer with the AI. I didn't have the foresight to think through to the future on how the applications that I use are going to develop to take advantage of AI. That's what I foresee coming. I don't know if it's 6 months away or 3 years away, but it's coming. And there's going to be a certain point where you're going to wish you would bought the AI version, because now your computer's only a few years old and you may not have the money to buy another one so soon afterwards. So you're forced waiting for the AI processing to happen on the internet and then come back to you. It depends on you and how you use your computer, but that's coming. The applications, whatever programs you run on your computer today, will eventually, more than likely, be redesigned, redeveloped to take advantage of AI. And the result of that is you will wonder how you ever lived without it. It's going to make your life so much easier. But the cost you're going to pay is the computer's going to slow down unless you have that AI built in. So it's just something to think about. And my prediction could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the way things are going to go. And no matter how against AI you are, so long as you use a computer and software on the computer, the software developers need to use AI in order for their software to become more useful. So programs like Acronis will probably introduce AI features that can automate a lot of things for you and audit things for you. And that may not be critical for you, but there may be any other kind of application you use on your computer that finds a way to embed AI within it to make that application do a lot more for you. As the result of that, it's going to slow the computer down, depending on the speed of your internet and how busy those servers are, the AI servers. So if you can bring that AI locally, it's going to happen faster. But we're not there yet, most of us. Right now, the developers who write the software need this. You and I, we need them to finish. We're not the cooks. We're the consumer. We're eating the food. They're making the food. You say, I don't need a steak knife. I'm not having any steak. Well, hold on. Do you know what the 4th course is? Oh, I was just thinking of the first 3 courses. Well, I've heard some rumors, and I think there's going to be a steak coming out, and you're going to want that knife. Maybe I'm wrong. Because you're not in the kitchen, you have no control over what's coming out of there. You know, basically, the chef brings you what the chef brings you. You know, some of these restaurants, that's how it is. You sit down, they're very expensive, and you're going to get fed what they have designed a meal for everything to go together, pairing it with the right kind of wine or etc. And, you know, minus any dietary restrictions. I realize that analogy is a little bit of a stretch, but I just want you to wrap your mind around it. Just the concept of it. Don't think about it too much. The logic of it kind of breaks down a little bit, but it's the same idea that if you don't know what's coming, and how do you know what utensils you need at the table? So if you've got all the utensils, you're good to go, no matter what, even if you end up not using them. And in this case, if you make a purchasing decision to avoid that AI because you don't see any point in it, you're right today, but you may not be right in a couple of years. And how do you feel in a couple of years replacing your fairly new computer? You okay with it? Go for it. Or just buy it and have it. And if you're not using it, it's not hurting anything. So things to consider when making a purchase. Now that we've rebooted and we've got our first set of updates installed, let's throw that AMD driver on there. So I'm going to come back over to this computer, and we're going to go to Explorer, Downloads. Here we go. We close that out. So here we're getting the 26.1.1, and there is a chipset driver update. These are absolutely critical. If you want to check that box or not is up to you. And we're off to the races. This should be happening automatically. AMD should be popping up a box that says, hey, you're out of date on your chipset drivers and you're out of date on your video drivers. NVIDIA is not shy about that. Why is AMD holding back? As far as I can tell, they just don't put as much time and effort and care into the software development. All their focus is on the CPU development. And it's like, I put all this time and effort into the food, but now I'm going to just serve it on the floor. I don't want to eat your carefully prepared food off a dirty floor. Can't you just give me some nice dinner plates? Well, that's not important to us. You figure it out. Get your own plate. I just expect better from AMD. And I don't know why, after all this time, they have made zero improvement. Why do you think we made Uncle Carey's AMD chipset notifier application? Intel's got one. NVIDIA's got one. They've got a video driver update notifier. You say, well, AMD has it. Well, not in the version I just showed you, not even to this day. Now, the version we're putting in adds it, but even then, you still may not be getting the chipset drivers unless you manually do it. You'll get your Radeon drivers, but not necessarily your chipset drivers. And the only way you'll know is you have to go in yourself and look and see for yourself. So if I have a grudge against AMD, it has nothing to do with their processors and everything to do with their software. I would say the same is true of HP. I think HP printers are pretty nice machines overall, but the HP software is some of the worst printer software I've ever experienced in my career. And it's always been that way. Well, I won't say always. I'd say it's been that way pretty much since they started coming out with those inkjet printers. Maybe not at first, but a few years after, because we went from just having laser printers, and the laser printers drivers were just simple, small, easy. I'm sure many of those HP LaserJet printers from back in the day, the LaserJet 3s and 4s, I bet you there's still some out there working. I also bet they probably suck up more electricity than any other electronic device in the office. They were not efficient with power. They're the muscle cars of fossil fuel burning, but they were built like a tank. No one ever says a tank gets great gas mileage, you know. It's built strong and to last, but you're going to pay for it in fuel and efficiency. Nowadays, they focus more on the efficiency, and they focus on ways to put you on subscriptions or even rentals for the printer and the ink. So that's one insult. And then when they turn around and, you know, you've got a downloaded driver that's darn near a gig in size, it's a ridiculous resource hog on your computer. And I personally find it offensive. But that to me is very equivalent to what AMD is doing here. They're holding themselves back. They're in their own way. If they want their customers to have the best experience with their chips, they need their customers to always have the latest drivers. It's in their own best interest for their customers' best interest. So it takes somebody like me to tell you guys out there, you need to do this yourself. I don't have to do that on Intel. You can say I'm a shill for Intel. I'm just telling you how it is. If I tell you that's on the left and it's not on the right, I'm a shill for the left. If I tell you that's blue and it's not green, oh, I must be a fan of blue. I mean, that's the weird way the internet works today, but it is factual information that is intended to help you, not to challenge you, but to raise you up so you have the best experience possible. And the really only acceptable answer I should be getting from the internet isn't a fight. It's gratitude. Somebody says, thank you, I didn't know that. Or thank you, I did know that, but I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. Otherwise, they're changing the subject into something we're not even talking about because they just want to fight. And that's what I deal with when I bring this stuff up. Well, you just don't like AMD. What the heck does that have to do? Whether or not I like it or not has never come up in the conversation. I don't like the software. All right, let's get back over to the software. And let's see if we got, let's see, first of all, keep AMD up to date, yes. Launch Adrenaline, yes. So we'll hit close, then that should open. Same screen as we got before, only on the top right, we should have an update button here. Let's see. Yeah, there's manage updates right here. And it says it's up to date. Good to know. Where was this before? How come now it's here, but before it wasn't? It's hit manage updates because that's where we have to go to see if we have the latest chipset driver. So this was also missing. We click here and it's going to study the system for a minute and see what we've got and give us our results here in just a moment. Okay, AMD chipset drivers are up to date and the AMD Adrenaline Edition is up to date. Very good. And even though it says auto update, don't believe it. I'd come in here about once a month, once every 6 weeks, and I would check with particular attention on that chipset driver because it might just say new version and then you have to actually install it even though you have an auto update turned on. Explain that one to me. And the AI bundle you guys were talking about, if you want it, it's an optional install. It does not install automatically, so nothing to worry about, nothing to cry about if you don't want it. Just leave it alone. It'll leave you alone. Okay. Stop touching each other. Let's get over to Crystal Disk Mark and let's take a look. First of all, I want to check a couple things. I want to go to the yellow folder down here. No, this PC. Right click on my C drive, go to Properties, go to the Hardware tab. We have a Kingston 1 terabyte drive. Okay, so there, that's how we know what we've got. Crystal Disk Info would read it to us, but that's just a little shortcut to get there. Let's do all the testing and see what our maximum speeds of the Kingston are. Kingston runs the gamut from cheap slow drives to really impressively fast drives with bizarre numbers that I can't tell you off the top of my head are the good Kingstons or the bad Kingstons. So I avoid Kingston because I never quite know, am I getting Dr. Jekyll or am I getting Mr. Hyde when it says Kingston on it, because they do both. Now a Gen 4 drive on the high end will do about 7,400 megabytes per second on a sequential read. We're getting 6128 out of here for an OEM drive. That's really, really good. A human being probably isn't going to notice a 1,000 megabyte per second difference. In most cases, it adds up to fractions of milliseconds in load times. There are some exceptions, but those people that are that demanding must have more money than us to justify having that sort of expectation. This is far greater than a lot of the mid-range Gen 4s we see that run closer to the 5,000. Now you might say, well, Carey, if 6,000 doesn't make much difference from 7,000, then wouldn't 5,000 not make much difference from 6,000? Correct, it doesn't. But I do feel like when I'm spending more money, I want to see numbers of a certain benchmark, not specific numbers, but numbers of a certain area that justify how much I spend. So if I spend a little bit more and I want to go 7,400, I expect to see something at or near 7,400. If the drive is included with the purchase of the computer and it's a $300 computer, then equivalently I expect the megabytes per second to be based on what I paid. Not based on the actual results, but based on the benchmarks. So it's very much a placebo thing, but it's in a lot of cases when you're paying more for extra in life, a lot of times that extra you're paying for is a placebo. There are people that will buy every feature on a car and pay the top dollar for that car fully loaded and end up not using 40% of those features ever, or they use them once or twice and never again. But they're there, right? The features you wanted are there. You may never use them, but they better be there because you paid extra for them. So that's my attitude when it comes to this. Since I have no control over what brand and model a manufacturer uses for their memory and their storage, depending on how much I'm paying, I expect a certain minimum. Since this is a high-end MINISFORUM AI 470, I expect an upper-end Gen 4 drive, and that's exactly what we got. We didn't get the highest end, okay? But on the other hand, with the price of drives right now, you can imagine just how much more price that adds, just so you can look at numbers that maybe make things a millisecond or two faster for most of us. And again, for people that really need those milliseconds, then that price difference for them to take that out and replace it is nothing for those people. Or just buy this as a bare bones model and put your own in. Because clearly you have more money to spend than most of us. And that's okay. We're just jealous. I'm going to just save these results. And we're going to go to, let's see, we'll call it Crystal Disk Mark. I cannot spell today. We'll put that on the desktop as a JPEG and save. There it is right there. Now we'll close this out. Let's run hardware info. We'll monitor our temps. And ultimately, what sort of performance numbers are we going to get with Cinebench? So let's go sensors only here. Start. Close this window. Close this window. Drag this over to the right. See if we can drop this down a bit. For temperatures, here's where our temperatures are at right now. I think you'll agree that's pretty cool. These are the minimum temps that have been recorded since we started this piece of software. These are our maximum, this row right here. And then this is going to be the overall average. So I don't really pay attention to the average. I'm going to be watching this row right here. So let's go over to Cinebench. We'll launch that. Here we go. Close this window. Accept the license agreement and run our first test. And we're off to the races. And let me make sure that I'm not blocking anything, because I usually am. So I will take camera 1 and we're going to move it over here so you guys get all that information. And if you have some questions for me, we've got 10 minutes of a warm-up before this test actually officially runs. That's why you'll see a countdown timer up on the left. And then when the countdown timer reaches 0, the benchmark starts. It just heats up everything. So right now we're going to start seeing the highest temps during the first 2 minutes of the warm-up of the multi-core test, and then we'll run the single-core test. And again, the first 2 minutes of that will also generate our highest temperatures, and we'll keep a look-see at how high those maximums do temporarily get, even for a moment, and listen for any fan noises as well. I do hear the fans now. I've never heard them before. They sound like a very small, like, desk air purifier. Very gentle. They're not whiny. And when I'm talking, I can't hear them when I'm talking. So they're that quiet. But if it's perfectly silent, I absolutely can hear the fans ramp up. So excellent cooling design here, clearly. Bill Stott said, hey, you can get an 8 terabyte Gen 5x4 NVMe solid state drive at Micro Center on sale, just $1,050. Yeah. Some people, $1,050 is a bargain. For most of us, though, not that important. Andy mentions there's the ABRZ XG1 with the AI HX470. It said it scored 23,290 in the multi-core Cinebench R23. Let's see how the 470 refresh CPU has. Did we ever do an ABRZ XG1? I don't remember that one. Well, I don't see, and Andy says his maximum temp on that was 84.4 Celsius. Let me step around while we're waiting and see. That doesn't sound familiar to me. I remember we did some pretty high-end ABRZ models with like 13900, 12900. But did we do an AMD 370? That's a problem when you do as many of these as I do, is that they all kind of, the different specifications are so minute, you know, the differences, the details, hard to remember all the details. ABRZ. Not seeing anything. Well, I don't think we reviewed that one. ABRZ is MINISFORUM, so you can get the same build quality and perhaps save a few dollars by buying the lesser known brand of ABRZ and still get basically a MINISFORUM with a different name on it. Not real sure why companies do this, but we see that all throughout the industry with Wowie and Paladin and Ace Magic and Cambrui, et cetera, B-Link and TrigKey. Yeah. Andy said we did this on July 17th. Let me take a look. You jump over to my YouTube channel. Carey Holzman, ABRZ. Well, clearly I'm not spelling ABRZ right. Let's go Carey Holzman. Videos. Oh, there it is. Yeah. The ABRZ XG1 AI Mini PC. July 17th. You got it right. Well, then I don't know where I put it. It's got to be here somewhere. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Appreciate the reminder. Here. Go full screen. How are we doing on our time? Still about 3 minutes to go. Our highest temp reached so far looks to be about 81.3. Nice and controlled temperatures here under an extreme synthetic performance test, which does not in any way represent typical real-world usage for this period of time. You might get this kind of usage for a few seconds or minutes, but for like 10 minutes like that, that's pretty hardcore. But it's just showing you, hey, it can do hardcore and not even worry about it. So we'll keep an eye as that progresses. And he said that review got me interested in the MINISFORUM ABRZ. Yeah. And of course, they don't call it a MINISFORUM ABRZ. They just simply call it ABRZ, just like Atom Man, which is another spinoff of MINISFORUM. I mean, they're doing that for some reason. They're keeping the MINISFORUM name off of it. Again, I'm not quite sure, and I'm not a marketing guy, but I'm sure there's a marketing reasoning there somewhere. Okay, if you have any questions for me, this is the time to ask where we're waiting for our Cinebench results. Overall, this is performing more or less exactly the way I thought it would. I love this little machine, and you don't hear me often say that about AMD machines. This thing blew me away. I expect this one to be a little bit better. Okay, mostly the same. It's like this is vanilla ice cream, and this is vanilla ice cream with chocolate chips. It's not a massive difference between the two. It's an upgrade, it's a polish, it's a refresh, and especially now when everything's slow, this is a great time to be refreshing since the entire industry has slowed down from Wi-Fi to CPUs and motherboards, RAM and storage and GPUs. Manufacturers have to find other clever ways to keep production moving and keep customers interested, because if you go away for a while and come back, you might come back to an empty room. Same is true on YouTube. If I stop making videos for a month and then I come back after a month, most of you won't be here anymore. Not necessarily out of punishment, you just will have moved on and forgotten, and time flies. And then maybe 2, 3, 4 months later, you go, oh, I wonder if Carey ever came back. And eventually, if I keep at it, I can build it back up again. But I call it losing momentum. You know, when you get a train to get going, it's really hard to get a train to move. And once that train starts moving, it's very difficult to stop it. So what ends up happening is if you were to cut all power to the train and let it coast, it'll go a couple miles all by itself before it comes to a stop. And that happens here on YouTube. If any YouTube creator were to stop making videos for 30 days, they'll coast until eventually it kind of comes to a stop. And yeah, you'll still have viewers, but you won't have anywhere near the number of viewers you used to. And it's very important, I think, in any industry that you still have to keep keeping people interested and involved. And so ideas like this are much more welcome now than, let's say, if there were a bunch of other processors coming out and you'd say, well, this is just a temporary stopgap to what's coming out next month. No, there's nothing coming out until the end of the year. So you want to talk about a stopgap thing, you know, it's not like this is going to be, to the best of my knowledge, replaced with anything better until the end of this year, and you may not even be able to get your hands on one till the beginning of next year. So it's not like you're, well, I'll just wait for the next one. I'll wait for the next train. That next train may be a month away, or in this case, a year away. So that's the way I see it. It looks like we got some results up here. Let me bring that up full screen for me. You guys already see it full screen. Okay, our score here, without any BIOS tweaks, just out of the box, factory defaults. 22665. Andy, what did you say you got? Let's go ahead, before I look at Andy's answer, let's start the single core. Let that start running for 10 minutes. Again, our max temp really never got hotter than 81.3. Let's jump back over to, let's see, chat room. Andy said on his AberZ, he got what score? $23,290, and we got $22,665. So I don't know if you made any modifications to yours or if you have more memory. So this is 32 gigs, single channel. And we're running at all the BIOS defaults. We can go in and turn on a performance mode if we want to do that and have the machine run hotter, if that's important to you. But again, for all of my testing, I like to go right out of the box, see how the engineers configured it. And it looks like we're getting a slightly lower number than what you got on your 370. However, the chip itself, I don't think has changed. It's the AI portion of the chip. And this is not doing any AI testing. We've not started any AI testing benchmarks because I don't see any point in it. In theory, this one should be a little better. but it's not going to be a world of difference better. It's just going to be a little bit better. The 370 to the 470 is you can Google the difference between them. It's just a refresh, just like the 13th gen Intel and the 14th gen Intel. Little tiny difference. But good to know, just the same. Good to have a point for comparison. And we've also run cooler than him as well. So if he has put it in performance mode, or if he has dual channel memory, that would explain that difference, as well as the heat difference too. Bigger numbers, bigger heat. Jim Kenny says, how would you check the Intel chipset drivers and download the latest? Well, what I would do is just install the Intel chipset drivers. So to do that, we'd run over here to the Google, and the Intel Driver Update Assistant will not help you with this. You have to do this by hand. But Intel doesn't really come out with chipset drivers that often, and when they do, it's usually for some new motherboard that came out. So in other words, if there's a new 860 chipset or something, 870 chipset, whatever they are in Intel, then the chipset drivers, they build onto the existing ones. So even though it's a new version of chipset driver, all the previous chipsets that are embedded in that aren't changing. But it doesn't hurt to replace it. So here's what I would do. I'd just go to the browser and type in download Intel chipset drivers. And the first link takes you to intel.com. Click on that link, and it says go to drivers and downloads. Okay. Under chipsets, okay. What do we have? Intel Quick Assist technology, I don't want that. Intel server chipset, I don't want that. This is not the link I am looking for. Let's go back again to our search results. Let's click this download Intel drivers and software. Oh, it's right in front of my face. Intel chipset INF utility. That's what I'm looking for right there. Download the setup chipset.exe file. This should work pretty much with any modern Intel motherboard, no matter what make, model, or chip, or age. Just click on that. It's a very small download, you'll see here, especially compared to AMD, because AMD is building their video driver in there, which is massive. So it's 106 megs. And then if we click on that, if you've already got the latest chipset, it just kind of skips through. Oh, I guess you can't see this. It just runs through the setup. Do be prepared to restart your computer after the chipset's been updated. But essentially, that's all there is. When I pull up, how am I going to do this? I guess we can do a display capture. Well, let's go here. Properties. You're going to get a screen like this. It says, welcome to the Intel chipset. Welcome to the setup chipset setup wizard. And click next, 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 and then plan to reboot. And then you'll have the latest version. But you probably already have the latest version. But if you want to be doubly sure, there's no harm in doing that. And when it's done, expect a reboot. Or don't expect to see any benefits until you reboot. And there you go. It's pretty rare that I ever have to update a customer's Intel chipset. Like, it's not part of my normal maintenance routine. We'll clean up temp files. We'll make sure they get the latest video driver. That's really important, Intel or otherwise. And, you know, the Windows 11 optimizer, all that fun stuff. Andy said, I think it's mostly the memory. The difference in chip speed between the AI 370 and AI 470 is less than 2%. I think it's more than 2% if I'm not mistaken. Let me Google it and see what Google says. It depends on what you're testing. Maybe it's less than 2% in that particular benchmark. That doesn't sound right, that it would only be 2%. It should be at least 7%. Difference between AI 370 versus AI 470 AMD. The AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470, also called Gorgon Point, is a refreshed, slightly faster version of the Ryzen AI 9 HX370, referred to as Strix Point. It features higher CPU boost clocks, up from 5.25 gigahertz to 5.1. Yeah, not a big jump there. And a more powerful NPU, 55 trillion operations per second versus 50 trillion operations per second. Again, that's pretty small. Both chips feature the same 12-core 24-thread architecture. It's 4 Zen 5 and 8 Zen 5C cores, and RDNA 3.5 graphics, representing a modest performance update rather than a major overhaul, hence the word refresh. So does that work out to 2%? Maybe it does. I think it's still more than that. What if I said, let's see if we make the computer do the work, percentage. AI is working on it. Well, the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470 is approximately 15 to 20% faster in multi-core performance, 15 to 20% compared to the Ryzen AI 9 HX370 based on early benchmarks and launch data. Technical City's website says the Ryzen AI 9 HX370 outperforms the Ryzen AI HX470 by a minimal 1% based on our aggregate benchmark results. So one does something a little bit faster than the other, and when you aggregate it all together, the old one actually shines by 1%. Boy, that's a tough one, isn't it? It's not a night and day difference, and in some cases, it theoretically could be worse. It depends how you use it. So clearly, when the manufacturer says, hey, this is 15 to 20%, that's on their testing, and they're going to tell you all the positive side. And then you've got all these websites, and depending on how they're testing, they could say the aggregate of all the different kinds of tests. But most individuals, they don't use a computer in that way. If your whatever applications or your personal interests are, that's where it matters the CPU shines for you. And if one shines for you better than another based on how you use it, I think the takeaway here is it's not going to be a very big difference for most people between the HX470 and the HX370. But it may be enough, especially if you're doing AI and you want that extra 5 trillion operations per second, that may be all you need to hear. On the other hand, you may have absolutely no need for that, in which case the upgrade would probably be pointless for you at this time. So to each their own, in our own expectations and values. But we do want to have reasonable expectations. I don't want anybody making a purchase that's not going to get something that doesn't meet their expectations. 100% transparency and honesty here. Nobody's trying to pull a fast one. Phil Stodd very succinctly and well said says use what works best for you. Chasing benchmarks is futile. Absolutely. It's an internet addict's game. Too many people on the internet are so disconnected, at least from my perspective, from what's going on outside. I see people on the internet talking about how Windows 11 is terrible and no one should use it. But if you go outside and talk to people, real people in real life, and say, do you hate Windows 11? What are you talking about? I don't love it. I don't hate it. I go to work. I use Windows 11. When you talk to the people online, it's just a world of it's a different world of all these people that are just sitting there preaching to each other what they want to hear. Windows 11's terrible. That's why no one uses it anymore. But then you go look at the data and find out Windows 11 just crossed over the 1 billion user mark, and it hit 1 billion users faster than any other operating system ever created in the history of operating systems. It's so terrible. It's got more users today and it's got them faster than any other OS. Well, Carey, that just means you're a shill for Windows. Yes, because I just made up the facts. Let's just throw away the facts because they go against how we feel. And let's shun the person providing you with the actual data because it isn't what you want to hear. The reality is what's going on outside, not what's happening in the internet. And if this continues, the internet will be Earth 2. And the actual Earth, the real OG, will be what really matters. Nothing that happens on the internet, if this kind of behavior continues, will be worth anything to anybody who cares about real information. It will instead be a support group for people who are against the masses, don't want to do what everybody else is doing, because the minute everybody else is doing it, that makes it terrible. They want to root for the underdog. Unless the underdog is successful, then they want to knock it off its perch for being terrible. That's the internet. If Linux were to become the #1 main used operating system around the world, having more Linux desktops in use around the world than any other OS, then there'd be a whole group on the internet going how terrible it is and no one should be using it. It's somebody saying nobody eats at McDonald's anymore. And yet you go to McDonald's and there's a line out the drive-thru, 20 cars long. So what they said on the internet is not equating to what's happening outside. Just want you to be aware of that. If you want your little shelter, you go online and just don't go outside. You can live in whatever world you dream. Okay, that's fine. It's not illegal. It's weird and it's delusional, but whatever gets you through the day. I'm only interested in facts. I don't care if I like the facts or I dislike the facts. I want to know if it's raining outside. How I feel about it is irrelevant. It changes nothing. All right, are we done with this test? It looks like we finished. And let's grab, let me go full screen on my side here. Wrong screen, Carey. Hold on a minute. Bear with me for 1 second. Here, full screen. All right, so looking at our test results, we're at 2071 on our single core test. And our maximum temps, look at how reasonable that is. I can't imagine that I likely can go into the BIOS and set a performance mode, and I will get a higher number here, and I will get a higher heat number here, and I will get louder fan noise. I don't do that. You can. It's my choice to not do it, just like it's your choice equally to turn that on if you want to. I don't want to. I want the longest longevity, reliability, quiet, reliable operation for the longest period of time, and the engineers have already done all that research for us. Me setting a performance mode, the engineers also designed that too. However, it comes at a cost. Higher energy consumption, less efficiency, more noise, more heat, and degraded silicon wear and tear. which may or may not make a big difference depending on how long you own the computer. So with all that in mind, I just leave it the way the engineers designed it. Unless I'm an engineer, or unless I'm willing to take the risks, you know, if you drive 130 miles an hour, you're taking a risk. You're risking damaging the car, wearing the engine out, having a heating problem, and not being able to stop on time. And when you crash, if you crash, you are going to crash harder. You're going to be more injured. You will sustain worse injuries, much more likely. And if it's worth it, if you're the kind of person that says that's worth it for the thrill, it was nice knowing you, and we will, you know, be sad when you're gone. But, you know, that's your decision. I like to keep everything running not at the peak and not at its worst. Get me right down that middle, and we're happy. If right down the middle isn't fast enough, buy a better computer. Okay. Let me save these results. Let me jump over to, let's see, how do I want to do this? Bring up the, oh, I guess just a print screen is all I need. Bring that up, and on the keyboard I'll hit function print screen. I think that worked. And then we'll go to paint. Great. Paste. So there's all my results. I'm going to save these to the desktop so I don't have to worry about running this again. We'll save it as a JPEG on the desktop. And I'll call it Cinebench R23 results. Save. And I'll close everything. Close, 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 close. There we go. So there's our crystal disk mark and our Cinebench results available at our fingertips. Of course, I want to run Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer on here. Check for updates. No updates are available yet, but Nick is working on some new features, and I'll have more information on that when they're available. See all these things that are turned off that aren't green? That's the defaults. That's not the way I want it. Those aren't my preferences. These are Microsoft's preferences. Optimize All puts it to my preferences, and it will take a minute. And then it will reboot after that. The optimizer is available for 20 bucks. The link for it is in the description. You get updates free for life, at least until the end of life of Windows 11. And it's not changing anything that is not sanctioned by Microsoft, so there should be zero consequences to incompatible Windows updates in the future, unlike other system tweaking that will cause you problems in the future, guaranteed. Mine, I can't afford to do that to my customers. I will go out of business. If I have to go back and be held accountable for making changes that weren't authorized, and now I have 100 machines that won't update and I have to fix all 100 myself, how am I going to make any money? And how are my customers going to feel about that inconvenience? So I play this game very differently than everybody else. Mine is measured over time for quality, compatibility, and ultimately value, because if it only works for 6 months and all of a sudden you got a big problem, that's the opposite of making your computer go faster. Because now if you have to solve a problem, how much time are you spending? If you go to the gym an hour a day, every single day, so you can live longer, every hour you work out, does that give you an extra hour of life? Otherwise, it's an hour of your life you're spending working out you're not going to get back. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying that's the way my brain works. What am I investing? What's my return? Am I getting a return right now immediately because I'm impatient and I don't care about tomorrow? You're the wrong guy if you think that's how I think. I'm playing a long chess game. I'm thinking about my next move, all the potential moves the competitor may make, and then the move after that. I'm thinking that far ahead. and I can't protect from everything. Life is chaos and unpredictable. But a lot of life is also predictable, and for those things, we can already be ready for those contingencies. That's the idea. And by the way, if something unexpected happens, we learn from it, we adjust, and we accommodate to make sure that won't happen again. And over time, we just keep refining and refining. Andy mentions the ABRZ is a better deal, 64 gigs of RAM for $850. Port selection's even better, but there's no fingerprint reader or card reader. So again, you know, to each their own. The ABRZ also didn't just come out. So for us to review a unit that's 6 or 7 or 8 months old, the older the unit gets, you'll probably find better value, if that's what you're shopping for, in older units rather than newer ones. Generally speaking, that's going to be true for almost anything. This seems like it's taking a long time to do whatever it's doing. Let me go back over to my full screen on this. It says it's disabling recall. Oh. I wonder if there's something different about this installer. I trust in the optimizer. If we find there is a different version or configuration of Windows than what we've been expecting, and like if this stays here, then what we'll do is we being myself and Nick, the developer over at D7X Tech, we'll figure out what's different about the MINISFORUM and why this is staying here, so it can be addressed. And you know, if nobody experiences it, it's not a problem. It's only if we ever experience a problem that we know we need to refine something. So I'm not sure if anything needs to be refined at this point, or if I just need to be a little bit more patient. It doesn't normally take this long to run the optimizer, so that's unusual. And the only thing different that we're doing different is this particular install of Windows on this hardware. And so if that's something that the application is being affected by, then we can obviously use this unit to do testing and make sure that anybody else with similar hardware wouldn't have this delay. I am hoping that it'll just get past this on its own, so we'll just let it run for a moment. In the meantime, if you have any questions for me, please do ask. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up for today's video. We're about 2.5 hours into it. And I feel like we did a really good job covering everything on this, from the inside, the outside. We didn't look at the BIOS, but I don't really think there's much in there. As far as I'm concerned, leave it alone. If you go in there and you want to play with it, I'm not telling you not to, but those are the people that are going to have problems, statistically. More likely going to have problems after you get in there. If you leave it alone, you'll statistically be least likely to have problems. And if you spend 3 days to try and figure out a problem because you were trying to go 4 milliseconds faster, I don't think that's a good investment on your time, but it is your time to spend how you choose. John Famler said, I'm guessing this is a decent computer even for modern games. Absolutely. You can play modern games on this as is, and if that's still not enough for you, you can get the Oculink dock and put whatever graphics card you want in it, and you're golden. I mean, granted, you're going to spend twice as much money than the computer costs to do it, but you can. It's an option on the table. I just don't like how long this disabling recall is taking. I do feel like there's something in the application that needs to be adjusted for this particular hardware. It's hard to test on every possible configuration, right? We do our best to do what's common. And from time to time, if you're in software, you know what I'm talking about. You'll run into some hardware you never ran into and get a result you weren't expecting. But once you're aware of it, then you can fix it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off for a minute, and I'm going to force a restart here. And when this comes back up, I'm going to run it again. We'll see if it's consistent or just a weird fluke. Find out here in a minute. If it's consistent, I'll clip the video, send it over to Nick so he can see it. But Nick doesn't have one of these to test on, but we can get him remote access into it if he needs to look into you know, any testing or research into it. Jim Kinney says, so update the drivers but not the BIOS. Yes, that would be the general rule when it comes to mini PCs. If you've built your own computer, you should be updating all of it. You should be at that caliber of control and technical savvy to feel comfortable to update your BIOS and drivers. If you're new to building computers and you just don't have that technical savvy and confidence, then just update your regular drivers. Leave the BIOS alone. I'll do the BIOS because I know what I'm doing. If you don't know what you're doing, leave it alone. But with drivers, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to worry about any of the caveats. But it's particularly, BIOSes are particularly different on mini PCs. They're not often released. There's not much you can change on mini PCs that would require a BIOS update. A home computer can have all kinds of changes, from which CPU you're using to which RAM you're using. And then of course there are always security updates as well. So it's not that mini PCs never have BIOS updates. They're very, very uncommon. And the way they apply is a little trickier. So really that should be reserved for more tech savvy people. If you're not a tech savvy person, generally stay away from it. Just your main focus should be on having the latest drivers for your chipset and your video card, in my opinion. All right, what does this want? Back over here. You know what? Maybe it was downloading an update in the background. Maybe that was the issue. The optimizer fought with it, and it got into a headbutt because it looks like it completed correctly. Everything should be green now. It double checks. It's not guessing. It's looking at the settings now and seeing if the settings are the way we wanted them. So there's a couple things that are turned off here for some reason. So I'm going to try one more time, optimize all, and I want to see if we run into the same problem. Now the optimizer can take a couple minutes to run. That's normal. It's a pretty intensive task. It looks like it's completing now because we didn't get that far, and it's restarting. So my guess at this point is a Windows update was still updating in the background, and it was conflicting with our adjustment of some settings. That makes perfect sense. We'll send a thank you letter to Microsoft. Because I didn't keep going back to Windows Update because I wanted to get on with the rest of the testing, this is the consequence of that. That's why I always emphasize, get your Windows updates done, keep rebooting and doing it. It takes a while before you do anything else. And if you try and do something else at the same time, like installing your printer and getting your email, you might find out something doesn't install right because you had 2 installs happening at the same time. And then all this rush, all this impatience is going to result in you starting all over again, which is the opposite of going fast. And that's a live demonstration of it right there. I should have rebooted first. Let those updates in the background. I should have known. And now everything is green. Very good. I am a little concerned. It says we're not activated. Is that right? Let's take another look. Windows activation. Now this is direct from MINISFORUM. Let's go down here and type in the word activation. See if Windows is activated. Something prevented us from communicating. Oh, okay. So that's a Microsoft issue. That's not us. Sometimes Microsoft activation servers go offline for maintenance or trouble. And my guess is, and I can only guess, that while we're live, those activation servers have gone offline for some reason, or at least in our region. So more than likely, if we try this again later tonight or tomorrow, it'll probably be fine. On the other hand, if it isn't, I will reach out to MINISFORUM support. But again, I would not panic or freak out. Everything is probably just fine, and it's something that's not within my control or MINISFORUM's control if Microsoft servers are offline for any reason. And every server that's ever been turned on has gone offline, even temporarily. So this is what I like about my optimizer. It brought that to my attention. Now, the other thing that I like about the optimizer, when I run it again, it'll tell us what the current state of the computer is. It doesn't just say, well, this is what you did last time. It has no recollection of what you did last time. It just says, here's the state of these settings. It always looks as though it never looked at them before. And if there's any settings you want to wind back, you just check the little box or move the little slider, and it instantly takes effect the minute you slide it over. So yeah, we'll have to just check back. And besides, it wants more updates anyway. So we'll let that do its thing. And we'll come back over to camera one. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. If you have any questions for me, as I continue to say my thank yous and whatnot, I am stalling for time to give you an opportunity to write your question in. If you miss your opportunity and you want to email us directly, our email address right here on the screen. My thanks to our friends at MINISFORUM. As far as I know, we're the first person to have this on a desk on YouTube and actually have it in our hands. A lot of people on YouTube saw this at CES, got to touch a display model. But it certainly makes me feel special that MINISFORUM thought so highly of us that they gave us the opportunity to review it first. However, I would still be looking at other content reviewers as they come out with their XI470 reviews, because they'll probably run some games on it if you're interested in that, and some different levels of tests that I don't do. And I think they complement each other really well. But again, I really appreciate the folks at MINISFORUM, and I also appreciate their designs and quality. So I couldn't ask for a better relationship with a manufacturer, because they'll hear my criticisms and not be offended by them. And I have very minor criticisms, if any at all, overall when working with MINISFORUM. And they continue to make products that, I mean, who else has a machine that looks like this? Who's their competitor? They're an innovator. They're a leader. They have original designs, original out-of-the-box thinking. And in a world of cookie cutters and copycats, why not go to the OG? Why not go to where it all starts from? These are the units that other manufacturers will strive to reach, but they won't surpass. I mean, all the power to them if they can. They can take somebody else's idea, but to then build on top of it, it's pretty rare. In the meantime, MINISFORUM continues with novel, innovative designs that don't have any comparison. And so to be able to work with a manufacturer like that, I feel completely honored and blessed, and I can't thank them enough. I also feel honored and blessed to have so many members in our chat room supporting us here. So we're not being paid by a corporation to tell you they're good. If I tell you they're good, it's because it's meeting my personal standards. In the same way, when a customer asks me, which computer should I buy? Even if it's not one I build, there's certain brands I will tell them to stay away from. Why? Is it a personal vendetta? I want my customer to be happy. I want my customer to come back again. It's not rocket science. If they're trusting my opinion, I better make sure I'm giving them an opinion that isn't going to come back and bite me on the butt later. You can't prevent that 100%, but you can prevent it about 98% of the time, in my experience, by just being very cautious over how good something's got to be before I refer it. Because the only other safe way is to say I have no opinion. That way nobody can be upset with you. Do you know how to do that? No, don't know. Nope. And I don't want to be that guy either. Thank you to Mara, our channel administrator, for making our thumbnail today, adding all of our video notes, and she's the one that handles all the emails and inquiries for manufacturers and viewers alike. Thank you to all of you for hanging out in the chat room today. It's been great having you. We start a new week and a new month. Well, I suppose the month started today, but officially it's back to work on Monday. We have a members only video scheduled for you tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. I'd like to keep those secret, but I have an idea. And that idea involves, well, you remember that old streamer with the Thermaltake case that I hate? I think I have a fix for it. I hope you'll join me for it. If you remember, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, will never be made public. It's a private video, and it will entail a complete rebuild of a computer that I think is going to, I hope, is going to change my attitude, because I hate that computer, and I think I have a way that I'm going to like it. But it involves tearing it apart. I have a good case and I have good parts, but together it's terrible. So those good parts need to go somewhere else and other parts need to go in the case. That's all I want to tell you. And I think when I do that, when I match it up differently, if that doesn't make me happy, then the next step is the trash can. So I hope you'll join me then. And if you're not a member, maybe consider becoming one to help support us here so we can do more projects like that. And that's an incentive as a reward and a thank you for the people who make these videos possible. And the rest of the videos, the Friday videos, the Sunday videos, those are public to everybody because of our supporters. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.